Tim Couch had come and gone after he failed to become the savior the Browns were looking for. But who would be his successor? Would it be one of the highly touted quarterbacks in the 2004 draft? No. It would be this man, Jeff Garcia. Garcia came from the San Francisco 49ers, where he had a pretty successful 5-year run. During that time, he made 3 Pro Bowls, threw 113 touchdowns, and played in 3 playoff games. But now he was in Cleveland, and his task was mighty big. He was in charge of taking the Browns back to the Promised Land. Now, as all of you already know, Jeff Garcia did not lead the Browns to any kind of land. In fact, his time with the Browns was very forgettable. But I still wanted to make a video about it for 2 reasons. Reason number 1. Jeff Garcia was the reason the Browns didn't draft Ben Roethlisberger. Head coach Butch Davis thought the Browns didn't need to draft a quarterback since they just signed Garcia. And reason number 2. 2004 was the first year I became a Browns fan. So that season is kind of special to me, and I've always been meaning to make some kind of video about that year. Since Jeff Garcia only started 10 games with the Browns, I will be able to discuss every game individually without having this drag on too long. And after that, I will go on to explain why Jeff and the Browns just didn't work out in the end. Now, with all that said, let's get to it. The Browns opened up the 2004 season at home against the Baltimore Ravens. The game was a defensive struggle for about 3 quarters with neither defense budging. But late in the 3rd quarter, Jeff Garcia broke the game wide open after he connected with Quincy Morgan on a 46-yard touchdown. The Browns ended up pulling away and would win big 20-3. Garcia did his job throughout the game. He took care of the football and made the big throws when he had to. At one point, he ran for a touchdown and jumped into the stands. It was a beautiful moment and looked like a sign of things to come. But that takes us to Week 2 at Dallas, where all hell broke loose. Garcia couldn't get into any kind of rhythm and had one of the worst games of his entire career. He finished 8 of 27 with 3 interceptions and no touchdowns. His passer rating was a staggering 0.0. To make matters worse, the Browns suffered an insane amount of injuries during the game. I can't remember the exact number, but I think they lost at least 6 players, one of which was their number 1 pick, Kellen Winslow Jr. This brings us to Week 3, where the Browns were at New York taking on the Giants. Jeff Garcia bounced back and had a decent showing. He went 21 of 31 for $180 with 1 touchdown and 1 interception. But the Browns were just outmatched the entire day and would lose 27-10. In Week 4, the Browns were hosting the Redskins. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any video from this game, so bear with me. Jeff Garcia had another decent showing, going 14 of 21 for $195. He threw 1 touchdown and no interceptions. The Browns ended up pulling out a victory 17-13 and improved to 2-2 on the season. But you could start to see a theme with Garcia. Even though he wasn't playing horribly, he wasn't doing what the Browns had hoped so far. Part of that was because of the system. Garcia wasn't comfortable in the system the Browns were running. They were trying to make him a pocket passer when he was much more comfortable rolling out and playing outside of the pocket. And that takes us to Week 5 at Pittsburgh. This was a big game early in the season for the Browns, so they were hoping this would be the week Garcia would get it turned around. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Garcia would have another average showing. He completed less than 50% of his passes and the Browns would lose 34-23. Garcia had his moments though. He did throw 1 touchdown and 0 interceptions. But once again, it was clear he was not comfortable out there. After the game, Butch Davis even described Garcia's play as skittish. Though the Browns were still 2-3 and very alive in the division hunt, you could tell there was a sense of urgency that they needed to get it turned around fast. That appeared to happen in Week 6. Jeff Garcia had a very impressive showing. He threw for over 300 yards and tossed 4 touchdowns, one of which was a 99-yarder. The Browns beat the Bengals convincingly by a final score of 34-17, improving their record to 3-3 on the year. But Week 7 would be a big challenge. The Browns were hosting the hottest team in the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles. Jeff Garcia was not intimidated though. He battled the entire game and gave the Browns a real chance to win. But despite his valiant effort, the Browns would fall short in overtime. It wasn't anything to get discouraged about though. Cleveland nearly knocked off the best team in the NFL. and Jeff Garcia had a fine day going 21 of 32 for 236 yards. He threw 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Though the Browns lost the game, it looked like Garcia was finally starting to figure it out. In fact, heading into their Week 9 matchup against the Ravens, Garcia was receiving a lot of praise from the national media.
At 3-4, the Browns needed even more, and one of the reasons they might get it tonight is Jeff Garcia, and that's because, Joe, he is getting more and more comfortable in this offense.
He is, Michael, but I want to talk about Jeff Garcia, the football player. He's not this physically dominant individual. He's not 6'4", he's not 245 pounds. But how do you measure a man's heart? That's what Jeff Garcia is all about. Now, when he left San Francisco, it did break his heart, but he also felt a sense of relief. And boy, did he solidify the Cleveland Brown quarterback situation. He is the man. Evidence the fact over the last 2 weeks that this offense has averaged over 30 points.
But just when Jeff Garcia seemed to be turning the corner, he would take a big step back in Week 9. He threw for only $146 with 0 touchdowns and 1 interception. That interception ended up costing the Browns the game. Ed Reed picked off Garcia in the end zone and took it 106 yards for the score. Garcia and the Browns would take another step back the following week against the Steelers. Pittsburgh's defense frustrated Garcia all day long. He completed only 7 passes the entire game, and he was even benched in the fourth quarter. Garcia was open about his frustration after the game. He said, quote, "You name it, we do it the wrong way." The progress he made just a few weeks back seemed like ages ago now. No one would have guessed it at the time, but Week 11 against the Jets ended up being the last game Jeff Garcia started for the Browns. He had a decent performance. He went 10 of 17 for 88 yards and 1 touchdown. Unfortunately, he got hurt at the end of the first half and didn't get to finish the game. The Browns wound up losing 10-7, and they fell to 3-7 on the year. The season was quickly spiraling out of control. To make matters worse, Garcia's injury sidelined him for the next few games. He would make a reappearance against the Bills in Week 14, but it only lasted 1 play before he got injured again. That injury sidelined him for the rest of the season, and that was a wrap on Jeff Garcia's first year with the Browns. It was a rocky year to say the least. He finished with a record of 3-7, and he only threw 10 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. His quarterback rating was 76.7. Amazingly, Garcia never got another chance to play with the Browns. A new front office was brought in after the season, and they decided to part ways with Garcia. I always thought this was a strange decision because the replacement for him was Trent Dilfer, which was an obvious downgrade in my opinion. So that's the story of Jeff Garcia's time in Cleveland. I look at Jeff Garcia as the first quarterback experiment of the expansion era. There have been many since then like Trent Dilfer, Jake Delhomme, and Robert Griffin III. But Garcia was really the first, and honestly he was one of the best. I have him in my top 5 Browns quarterbacks since 1999. And you know, it's too bad Kellen Winslow got hurt in Week 2, because I really think Jeff's time in Cleveland would have been a lot different had Winslow been available. That was a big weapon that was lost. So, in conclusion, the main reason Jeff Garcia didn't work out with the Browns was because of the system he was playing in. In order to optimize his potential, Garcia needs to be rolling out and making throws on the run. In other words, the opposite of what Butch Davis had him doing. Anyway, that does it for this video. I do want to end with a little announcement. You may have noticed that I took down all the highlight clips that used to be on my channel. They were mainly throwback Cleveland Browns videos. Well, the reason I did that was to avoid getting copyright strikes in the future. Because since I'm becoming a full-time content creator, I don't want to risk becoming big on YouTube only to have my channel taken down because of a copyright strike on an old highlight video. But if you really like those old videos, don't worry. I made another channel called Ramen Robbie Highlights where I'm slowly re-uploading all those old clips. I'm also going to be uploading new videos there too. So if you really like throwback Browns videos, make sure you go and subscribe to my new channel. The link will be in the description. Also, I created a Twitter account for my YouTube channel. I figured I needed to do that if I'm going to be serious about this YouTube thing. So make sure you follow that as well. I'll leave a link in the description. But that's going to do it for me. As always, I thank you for watching and please subscribe.